Welcome to the Inspired Hygiene Podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Wall. I'm an RDH and founder of Inspired Hygiene. For over 20 years, we've had the unique opportunity to see what really happens inside thousands of dental hygiene ops and what it takes to create transformational change that impacts the lives of patients, practice owners, and teams. Each season, we'll focus on one powerful topic, breaking it down with practical strategies, real stories, and tools you can use right away. Let's get into it. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of the Inspired Hygiene Podcast. I am super excited to be joined by the one and only Emme Sanders. Hi, Emme.
Hi, everybody.
I'm so glad that you're here with me. Emme is a lead coach with Inspired Hygiene and has been for, I should be better at keeping up with these dates, but I'm going to say it's been about 10 years. We're going on 10 years.
I think it's 11. It's 11.
Is it really? Okay. All right.
Well, that was like yesterday.
Yeah, I know. So that's awesome, though. I love it. I love it. And Emme, you've been on other podcast episodes with IH and other podcasts as well. Like, you're a pro at this and you're an amazing speaker. And you also are co-founder of CollabriCon. So tell us a little bit about CollabriCon, because I know you've got a resource later in this episode you're going to share with us.
I do. So CollabriCon was founded by 4 people who are at different parts of the practice. So I'm the hygiene component of CollabriCon. And what we do is we have teams come together for 2 days to do discovery exercises, to learn what they're missing, where the gaps are, and leave with action plans to close the gap. That's CollabriCon.
Okay. So they're coming to a 2-day event together with other teams, and they're collaborating, hence the name, right, to really come up with solutions to move the whole practice forward, and everybody's involved because that's really what it takes, right? It's not one person in a silo. It's really difficult for the leader. Let's just use that example because we're going to be talking about leadership today. It's really difficult for the leader to go to an event, gather all this information, and then they come back and the team wasn't there. The team was maybe still answering phones, seeing patients, and the dentist was at some wonderful location learning all this great stuff, and then they try to come back and translate it, and it's very difficult. So I always say, like, when I see dentist practice owners and office managers as leaders, and they're attending dental hygiene programs at conferences or at a study club or whatever it is, like, I know that they can take that information and run with it because the leadership has heard it, the hygienists have heard it, and they can then collaborate and move it forward. So there is absolutely a lot of power in that. So yes, go ahead.
One of the things that I noticed, this is the why behind CollabriCon, is at speaking events, I was talking to other speakers, and as a hygiene coach or as a hygiene speaker, I would get these hygienists all pumped up and ready to do something different, and they'd get to work next week and they couldn't convey the message. They couldn't get everybody on board. And so then what happens? Nothing happens. So that's why CollabriCon came together. It takes all of us, and some of the best answers are right there on the team. It doesn't always come from a leader.
Or an expert, right? Sometimes the team knows. Yeah. Sometimes, and I tell folks this, that I'm talking to about coaching is like, they might be frustrated with the hygiene team not performing at the level that they're expecting. But a lot of times the hygienists want to reach that level. They just don't know how, or they just don't believe that things can change because they've never experienced that before, So, and that what you mentioned, that frustration that happens from everybody that goes to these individual courses, and there's so much value in those courses. I'm not saying that, but there is that frustration of the dental assistant can come back and say, hey, there's this amazing new procedure or material would save us time. And if the dentist wasn't in on that, it's real hard to get them to move and change what they're doing. And it's just human nature. Like, we need to experience that ourselves. So I love that. So this episode is kicking off season 5 of the Inspired Hygiene Podcast. And as of the date that we're recording this in April 2026, we are 1 year in to the Inspired Hygiene Podcast. And I'm really excited about that. And I just want to thank everybody. And if you've been listening to this for a while, I would just ask, we would love it and be so honored if you would go to your podcast platform and give us a review. Just write us a quick review, leave us a rating, because that just helps others find the podcast. Maybe share the episode with a friend, just, to help them kind of get what they need as well. So we're doing the podcast in seasons. And as you've noticed, that each season has a theme. And so this season, we're going to dive into and give you some practical application of all of the different elements of the Inspired Hygiene system. And so if you're watching us on YouTube, you'll see we just put up a slide demonstrating or showing an image of the Inspired Hygiene system. And this really is our framework for how we work with teams to help them get dramatic improvement and results in their hygiene department, while empowering the hygienist, helping the hygienist feel more engaged and energized, while helping patients get better clinical outcomes, and also the practice sees better business outcomes as well. And so this really is our framework. And so this season is going to be all about kind of digging into each of the elements of this system and giving you some practical application and things that you can really draw from this that we've seen through our experience. And we're going to have on some amazing guests that have influenced us. And you're going to hear from some of our clients, and it's just going to be really, really fun. So Emme, we're starting this one with the leadership topic. Now, for those of you that aren't watching this on YouTube and you're listening, I'll just go through the different elements. It's leadership, mindset, empowered team, calibrated culture, clinical protocols, communication, business processes, and metrics. So those are the 8 elements of our Inspired Hygiene system that we're going to go through in this season. So leadership is the first element for a reason. Before anyone ever engages with Inspired Hygiene, we are speaking to a leader in the practice. It is most often the dentist owner. Next often is the practice manager or practice administrator. And then sometimes it is a lead hygienist as well. And we are speaking to someone in a leadership position that has recognized that there is a need for some refinement in the hygiene protocols. There's some need for clear expectations and leadership for hygiene to really grow and develop and really go to where it really can be. And so leadership is we're always having a leadership conversation first and foremost. So Emme, you, over 15 years at least of coaching teams and speaking all over the country, into Canada. Like, you have a ton of experience with this. And so I really am excited to hear your perspective. But let's start first, just like, what happens when that clinical and or business leadership is not present in the practice?
Well, it's a little bit like the Wild Wild West.
Yeah.
So that when we see the leadership team not engaged or not being a part of the total, we see a decrease in culture. We see a decrease in productivity. I know it's not all about the money, but let's get real. That's a biggie. We also see decrease in the opportunities of the way we get to serve our patients. So setting the expectation for having a leader in and working on the team all the time, that's got to be priority 1. So a lot of times people, even owners, like owner dentists, will say, I'm not a leader. Okay, great. It's just because you haven't decided to be a leader yet.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody can be a leader, and you don't have to. Here's what I love. A lot of people think leadership happens in a meeting, a monthly meeting, a quarterly meeting, or a weekly meeting, whatever you do. But the reality is Leadership happens in all those little micro moments all throughout the day and the weeks, right? And it's our job to look for the opportunities to be great leaders. Kind of a
Yeah.
long answer. Sorry about that.
No, I think that's great. And so what I see is, you might wonder like, okay, well, you said that the leader is the one that calls and has this conversation and they engage with Inspired Hygiene for coaching. But then often they don't follow through on that leadership or back up what has been decided in these facilitated, coaching sessions. And so they're, even if they say they're not a leader, by default, if they're the owner of the business, they are a leader. It's whether they're effective or not, right? So it might be, hey, I don't feel confident that I'm an effective leader, is really more of what they're saying than I'm not a leader. And leaders aren't just born, right? Leaders can be made, leaders can be coached 100%. One of the things that you mentioned was that not having leadership, like clear leadership in place, really impacts culture. I would say it also impacts team member satisfaction.
Yeah,
And
morale.
yeah, and I can't tell you the number of times that I've had team members say, you know what, we just need doctor to be a leader. We need them to step up. And they say that often. Team members say that often, even when they know that the decision from the doctor may not match exactly what they want, but they just want the doctor to make a decision and follow through on it. So I think that that leaders good effective leadership is part of team member retention too. So
Absolutely.
yeah, yeah. And a lot of, whether we want to say this or not, a lot of folks that are listening to this podcast are listening because they want to see some type of positive change in their practice. And so you wrote a book about workplace change. Can you share that with us? Okay. It's called Welcome to Work, and we're going to include a link of how you can get this book in the show notes. But walk us through this on like, how does leadership impact workplace change? And like, what are the practical things that leaders can do to improve their leadership skills?
I'm going to say homework assignment number one
Okay.
that you need to focus on is, what do you agree upon? Because when we don't have clear expectations, clear understanding, we that's when we falter as team members, right? So it can be as simple as, what's a full schedule look like? Or better yet, I love it when a team member is always late every morning.
Mm.
Well, why are they always late? What are the clear expectations of when we are supposed to be here? Right? So when we define to a team, hey, this is what a full schedule looks like, then we're setting the tone. We're giving the guidance. And then what's gotta happen next is, once you set that tone, you've got to constantly kind of love on leadership, right? Here's what's got to happen. You've got to, you can't lead from just a meeting. You've got to lead daily, and you've got to see things. You've got to be able to speak to things, and then just repeat that over and over and over. So one of the big tips that I love to share with folks who are working on their leadership style is constantly be looking for something that's done right.
Mm.
When you find something that's done right, tell them. And for extra bonus, tell them in front of everybody else. There's a study that proves when we get a compliment to one person, not only, let's say I'm giving you, Rachel, a compliment for being a great podcast host. And not only do I get endorphins from telling you that, you get endorphins from hearing that, and everybody else around the room that hears you do that message, they too get a release of endorphins. So you've set strategy to your benefit. So look for all the things that are done right. Strong leaders don't always look for what's wrong.
Mm.
You got to look for what's right. And then when you see something that needs addressing, maybe not being at work on time, or not doing the agreed upon ultimate hygiene exam. Maybe whatever the situation, do that as a private conversation. Don't do that in public. We don't want to chastise, right? We want to
Yeah.
and have a power phrase to begin the conversation. Hey, are you open for some coaching? Or if you don't know exactly why the team member is doing said thing or not doing said thing, ask another question like, tell me what's holding you back from achieving what we agreed we were going to do. That's
Yeah.
harmless, right? It's not you, right? So we have to remember not to say you. Um, but look for ways that you can collaborate and work together to get back to what you guys agreed on. And in my book, I even talk about an agree pact. So there's
Mm.
3 things that I've trademarked. Okay. There's the agree shift. That's the shift when not only you as a person, but also your team, when you shift and you say, hey, it's time for us to do something different. Then there's the agree pact. That's when you're really doing the hard work. You're deciding, hey, we are going to do a comprehensive periodontal assessment on every patient once a year. Or we are going to do perio probing every patient, every visit, every time. Whatever your agreement is, you're going to write those down. And that's your agreed pact. That's what you and your team are going to agree to do. But then inevitably, here's what always happens. We have agree drift. That's the
Mm.
third part. That's a big part of the book is agree drift is when we drift away from what you and I agreed we were going to do. And there's a beautiful way that you can have that difficult conversation with that drifting team member. I want you to start the conversation with this. I noticed that, let's say it's perio charting. I noticed recently when you're not committed to doing the periodontal charting the way that we had originally agreed. Tell me what I can do to support you to get you back on track to what we agreed was going to be our standard of care here in this practice, right?
Mhm.
So do an open, loving, and trusting way and inspire them to want to get back to the pact that you made. I'm sorry, I kinda got a little bit on a little, preaching box there, sorry.
No, that was great. Like you gave us 3 really good points on that. Is the agree shift. That's the agreement that we're going to shift our workflow or our protocol or something. Agree pact is the actual written agreement of what we're going to do. And then agree drift. And agree drift happens. It's just part of human nature and part of life, right? Like, especially with teams that have been doing things a certain way for a really long time, it is it is hard to change those habits. And so as the clinical leader, a lot of times when we're talking to a clinical leader or dentist usually about coaching, they say, so are you going to be the ones to hold my team accountable because, I don't want to have to do that. I'm like, well, we're not there every day, and you're the ones that are seeing those exams and you're seeing whether or not those periodontal assessments are happening and if there's bleeding and it has this patient been recommended for treatment. Like, you're the one that's seeing that. So there always has to be some type of leadership element to keep these agreements in place, but they do drift. And it doesn't have, the sooner that you address that and have that open conversation, and what you're doing is you're inviting that team member to share. You're not
Yeah.
saying, "You're not doing this, you're not doing that, you have to do this." You're asking them, like, "What's holding you back from that? How can I support you in that?" You're asking them to share what's going on and where they might have, an obstacle that's in their way of completing that on that agreement, right? And then the sooner you address that, then the sooner you can get back on track with that agreement and that agreed pact. So, yeah, I love that. I love those ways of opening that conversation. I think that's super practical and helpful for leaders.
And I wanna share a personal story. This was in 2000, 2001, maybe 2002. Intraoral cameras were really becoming a thing in dentistry, and my doctor, Ross Nash, was committed to doing that for patients. And we set the tone in a meeting that that's what we're going to do. We're going to do an intraoral camera tour of the mouth on every patient, every visit, every time. And I drifted. And the very first time he walked into my operatory and the images were not up on the screen.
Mhm.
And he said, "Hey, Emmy, when you get the intraoral images, call me. I'll be right back." Now that was in front of the patient. I was sweating underneath all my scrubs. That panicked me because we never want to disappoint our leader, our employer, right? But he did that to me. Now I'm a slow learner. He did that to me 3 times because I'm a slow learner. But here's what I do know. I never, ever see a patient without having an intraoral temperature of the mouth. Every patient, every visit, every time. So it can happen, but leaders have to step in and have those difficult moments. And they might get a little prickly about it. It might be
Mhm.
a little, but they're more embarrassed than anything.
Mhm.
And we don't want to embarrass anybody.
Mhm.
But that left an indelible mark in my
Mhm.
mind.
Yeah.
And so think of it as an opportunity to
Mhm.
really help someone change who they are and how they serve their patients.
And what I know is his point of that was so that you and he both could have all the information to
Mhm.
educate the patient, right? And so that that doctor exam was going to be as effective and efficient as possible. And so I want to point that out because sometimes what happens in me is instead of having that, like making that statement, and he didn't, I'm going to use the Southern term, he didn't do it in an ugly way, right? He
Mhm.
did it in a polite way. Just let me know when you get those images and I'll be right back. Yeah. But you knew exactly what the message was and that
Mhm.
there had been some drift. Now, the other way that I've seen this happen is the dentist takes the passive aggressive route and they sit down and either they, struggle through the exam without the intro photos, or they grab the intro camera and they take the photos themselves. And then that builds resentment because
Yeah.
they know what's been agreed to. And then the hygienist they know, they're like, oh, I was supposed to do that. And it's just this unspoken, kind of resentment starts to build. And that doesn't serve anybody well. And patients can feel tension like that. And
Absolutely.
and so don't let it build to the point that that it's creating resentment. If you've ignored it for a while, then maybe it's time to have that private conversation. Hey, I've noticed this recently and I should have said something sooner, but here's what we agreed to. How can we help? And sometimes it's a fact that, like, the foot pedal on the intro camera isn't working. Like, sometimes it is a very,
Legit.
like legit logistical problem, and either we just haven't had time or we've put in a ticket to have it repaired and it hasn't happened yet, or like whatever the problem is, then somebody can do something about it. Yeah.
Absolutely. And
Everybody.
what I heard you say was, ignore that, sometimes a leader or a dentist could ignore that behavior, and that brings back to, something that we've talked about before is what do you tolerate? So, hey,
Mm,
if you're driving, just, remember to do this exercise. Think about what it is that you're tolerating in your practice, and then think about how can I address that? Because here's what I do know. Whatever we agree to tolerate is what we're agreeing that can continue to happen. So
mhm,
don't do that, right? If that frustrates you on the inside and you have that quiet frustration, don't tolerate it. Address it. It's worthy of being addressed.
mhm.
And I think team members will appreciate it. When you get a little further out from the addressing of it.
Yeah. What would you say if, so let's say there's a leader, a practice administrator, a dentist, or even a lead hygienist, and let's say that there are a lot of things on that tolerations list. And, they really would just want to go through and just like fix everything all at once, but then that ends up being like a tornado going through the practice, right? So how can they start? How can they start with resetting their leadership effectiveness, I would say, with, like, do they pick one thing? Do they, like, how do they start once they see that list of tolerations?
Here's how I coach teams to do that. Don't roll up in there at a team meeting with 20 things. Not going to happen. Those are unrealistic expectations for all of us. Instead, pick one. So go to a team member and kind of go ahead and tell, hey, listen, I have identified something that I've been tolerating, and what I would like to do is implement that we're doing intraoral camera tours of the mouth on every patient, every visit, every time. And tell me, what do y'all think about that? So you see what I did there? Not only did I tell them, or I said that hey, it's on me. I'm ready to make a change. That's the shift. Now I'm getting the buy-in from the team. What do y'all think about that? And and remember, as the owner, you still get to be the one that makes a decision.
Yeah.
But it's important that you get the buy-in first. So let them say what they've got to say about that, and then let's agree. And don't do every patient, every visit week one. Maybe that's your goal.
Yeah.
But pick one this morning. So let's say that we're going to a whole week. Pick one patient in the morning and one patient in the afternoon. And then week 2, pick 2 patients in the morning and 2 patients in the afternoon. And week 3, I mean, you get it. Until
Yeah.
you build up that you've done every patient all day long. Now you've
Yes.
implemented that. And celebrate. Check it off your list and
Yeah.
celebrate. We're consistently doing this every time. And I'm so happy to see that. Right? So
Yeah.
celebrate. Buy pizza or do whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
Do something kind, and it can just be words of affirmation. That would be great. That's a lot of people love to hear that they're just doing a great job. So baby steps, and then pick your next topic. What do you want to work on next? Now that you've mastered this, let's move to the next thing. Slow and easy and steady. That's the way to go. It's a lot like a cruise ship, right? When
Yeah.
you're on a cruise ship, you don't turn around and start heading home really quickly. It's a slow turn. And it didn't
Yeah.
get this way yesterday anyway. So slow turns are good.
Yeah, I agree. And I think what you might find too is when you address those things in that way, exactly as Emmy described, you might see some of the other things just automatically improve because they're noticing like, oh, the leader is noticing that we're making improvement in this and acknowledging that. And so, you know what? I know I've been late a lot, so I'm going to work on that. So some other things may just naturally improve when they see that you're actually standing up for what the expectations are, right? You're holding people accountable in a kind, positive way, right? And you mean it. Like you mean that you want these things to improve. And what about when it doesn't improve, even with all of that coaching?
Okay, that's the toughie. When
Mhm.
it doesn't improve, you're going to have a more crucial conversation. We learned that term from Catherine Nightel Belt. Hopefully, she's been on the podcast or going to be on the podcast, and you can learn it
Yes.
from her. She is the master at teaching crucial conversations. And when you don't get the change that you had hoped, then you've got to man up and have, or woman up and have this crucial conversation. And it
Mhm.
could be something as simple as this. Um, I see that we're not in alignment on doing the ultimate hygiene exam, whatever your subject matter is. I see we're not in alignment with that. Tell me what I can do to help you to want to do this ultimate hygiene exam on every hygiene patient. Tell me what am I missing? So it's like you're almost owning it for
Mhm.
them. And then give them the expectation. Here's what I'd like to see. This is our
Mhm.
standard of care. I'd like us to see that we're doing this consistently. And would it be fair that we agree to implement this in the next 4 to 6 weeks? Give them a timeline, and then once you give them a timeline, and then touch base with them.
Mhm.
Eventually, that conversation might have to get tougher, and there might have to be
Yeah.
some consequences for
Yeah.
failure to do those things. You wanna know
Yes.
more about consequences? Well, that's a whole nother podcast.
Yeah.
Um, but here's what I see most frequently. Now, I've been coaching teams over 20 years, and I have had 2 employees that had to be let go. Here's what I know. Humans are good people, and they want to do the right thing. And they want to we're people pleasers naturally. So let's look for all the ways that we can make that work. And I'm confident. I mean, coaching teams this long, 2 employees couldn't. So I have a feeling you probably have all the right teams, and they're a choice. They're a choice. If they choose not to do your way, your standard of care, the way you want to serve your community, that's okay. It's just like we tell patients, no is an option. They don't have to do treatment. No is an option. And it's okay. If they choose to not do what you're asking them to do, that's their choice. And when they choose that, there's some opportunity for us to help them find another practice that may have better alignment with how they want to serve patients.
Yeah, that's right. It's their choice. It doesn't mean that choice aligns with your practice philosophy. But everyone is at choice.
Everyone's
nobody's in a hostage situation here. I know a lot of dentists feel that way, with what's going on with hygiene, but that you're not in a hostage situation. And we have seen it time and time again that if there's somebody that's not a fit and they have to release, then someone else comes in their place and it's a great fit. It might take some time. I'm not saying it's easy, but it ends up nearly every single time being a better situation, right, than it was before, because there was a reason that there was not alignment there. Okay, so this is a great kickoff for this element for the season as a whole and for this element of leadership. And we're going to dig into leadership more and talk about leadership from the perspective of a dentist owner, right? Improving their leadership skills. You're going to hear about that. You're going to hear also about what does clinical leadership really mean? Because from our perspective with what we do at Inspired Hygiene, having a strong clinical leader is a necessary element for results. To the point that if I see that there's not clinical leadership, very often those are not clients that we will take on because we want everybody to get a great result. So that is a really important element. So stay tuned for that and some future episodes on this element of leadership. Emme, you had one other thing that you wanted to share, another resource that we will share in the show notes that I think is relevant to leadership.
Yes. Yeah. So I created this assessment. It is the 17 mistakes that dental teams make that destroy collaboration and how to identify them in 5 seconds. But not only is this in here, but there's also a quiz in here. So Rachel will drop the link in here.
Yeah.
Just download this, take the quiz yourself. It's a little bit like golf. You want the lower score. Okay. Remember that. It's a little bit like golf. You want the lower score. But it's gonna help you to decide, are you guys well calibrated and how do you move on from here?
Okay. And I think we'll probably highlight some opportunities for leadership development, whether with the practice leader or leaders within your team, right? Because you don't have to have the title of owner or practice administrator to, number one, lead yourself, or number two, to lead others in a positive way, right? Very often others when they see other team members following that agreement, they see, okay, this person's doing it, so I should be able to follow that agreement as well. So we can always lead ourselves, and we can lead others, even if it's just over the course of doing our work throughout the day, even if we don't have that title as a leader. So I think that's a great place to wrap. And thank you, Emme, so much for being with me, and thanks everyone for listening to this episode. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Inspired Hygiene Podcast. We hope you got a ton of value and some things that you can really take away and implement now. So as always, we invite you, if we can help you in any way to optimize your hygiene department, head on over to inspiredhygiene.com. And as always, stay inspired.